Okay, so um, the main plan for the evening is to go through an outline document that I've prepared. Um, the first section of the document is well, before I get too far in it, can you all see my shared screen? Okay, so the first part of the document is the name selection process that we're going to go through. That'll talk about the various votes and the logistics. And then the second section is the voting method. And then we'll look at a proposed ballot. As you may have heard before, this whole process has been designed. I'll try to highlight this so you can tell what line I'm talking about. With this in mind, we want to select a name that maximizes the overall satisfaction of the congregation. And that goal has driven the choice of voting system. Soon we're going to uh, pause the uh, process for nominations of unique names. Um, we use pause here because we may reopen this process after vote one, which we'll talk about down below, for discussion of candidates that arise as a result of vote one. Um, and then sometime around February 4th, we're going to hold the first vote, vote one. And this will select a single winning candidate for the institution type, a single winning candidate for the denomination identifier, and we will select an as yet to be determined length list of finalist unique names um, for inclusion in the second vote, vote two. After vote one, we'll hold a forum discussion to go over the results. Things like how many of these unique names should we include in the final vote? Are there any new nominations? Any new considerations regarding how we combine the C's and the U's and the unique name or names? Proposals for adding a tagline to the name. Um, these decisions above may be decided by a uh, simple majority of the people present at that forum. Um, we don't have a date yet for the second vote. It'll depend on the length of this process and what happens there. But in the second vote, we will choose a single unique name. And that ballot may include other options like a tagline or other name component considerations from the discussion above. Once we have that, we'll move on to vote on the adoption of the new name. And this is going to be a full formal vote according to our bylaws. So there will be a notification period per our bylaws, 10 days prior to the occurrence of the vote. Everyone has to be notified of the vote. And the board has decided on a 40% quorum, 40% of the membership, and a 75% affirmative vote for the new name to be adopted. And that is the same set of criteria that we use for buying or selling a building. So I think, so that is the voting process. Are there any questions on that? And is the sound still good? Okay. I noticed that my video is a little jerky.
Your sound
Will
got,
that final vote be a paper ballot, or what's the process of reaching out and getting 40% of the members 75. Is it gonna be all those who show up?
Yeah, this final vote probably will be an in-person vote.
Okay.
I say probably because that's how we've done those things in the past. So I
Yeah.
would imagine that will be an in-person vote. Maria, you were going to say?
I was just gonna say, I was going to say, every once in a while your voice will drop a little bit, but I can hear you, but it does drop a little.
Okay. I think it might be a bandwidth problem.
Okay. I can still hear you, and I could turn it up on my end also, but
Okay.
I
Is
thought
anybody else? Okay. Is anybody else experiencing intermittent sound from me? Doesn't sound like it. Okay, I'll keep going. Well, first of all, are there any other questions on the voting process before I go forward? Okay, so voting method. We're going to use a method called star voting, which stands for score, then automatic runoff. The way this works is, well, and what we're suggesting is that the voter first assign a 0 to, or somehow otherwise mark for yourself candidates that you disapprove of. So these would either get a 0 or a blank line. And the reason we recommend that you start with that, especially with a list of 75 names, is it will help narrow down the subset of names that you want to actually think about and work on. And you're free to do that in any way that works for you. You can cross them off on the ballot if you want. You can put a line through them. The next thing we recommend is that and that we ask you to do, is find your favorite candidate and give that one candidate 5 stars. And don't give any other candidate 5 stars. And then that will tell us, that's a valuable piece of information. That will tell us who everybody's favorite candidate was. Then if you take all the other candidates, they would receive a number between 1 and 4 to indicate your degree of preference for those candidates. Of course, 4 being the most preference of that group. You can give the same score to multiple candidates. And one of the most important aspects of the star voting system for our current situation is that we have most people score multiple candidates. If almost all people just score one candidate, then our outcome will be no better than if we use a one person, one vote system, which would not work well for 70 voters and 75 candidates. And I can talk later about why that is. Okay, so and I'm going to go through these items and then we'll look at a video that does this, but the video is pretty fast. We can watch it more than once. We have time to do that, but you'll see all these same points in a video that we're going to see. So the way we analyze this vote is the scores from all the ballots are totaled for each candidate. The top 2 candidates from that tally go to a runoff. And in that runoff, each ballot is awarded to a candidate according to which of those 2 finalists has more stars on that ballot. And if there's a ballot where the 2 winners happen to both get 4 stars, for example, from a voter, then that ballot is a tie and it doesn't go to either of the 2 candidates. And I can also explain later the value of this runoff step to what we're trying to achieve with this vote. And then in vote 1, we're going to select say 8 unique names. The way we do that is after this step up here with the runoff, the step 2 here produces one winner. Then we just go down to the loser of that matchup and the third place finisher and match those two. And we just keep going down until we have selected however many finalists we want to take to vote 2. So it's really easy to come up with multiple winners. So each pairing, after this first score in step 1, each pairing will go to a runoff. Okay, so I'll stop here for questions on that system before we go into the videos, since the videos are short and fast.
I would assume items that don't get any star on any ballot get eliminated.
True. And even when we have 75 names, there will even be a fair number of names that do receive some number of stars, but still not enough to make it on
Right.
the finalist list. So what we're interested in seeing is if there is some natural break in the population that makes sense for the vote too, rather than specify one ahead of time and then have to hold
Right.
to it. Okay, so are there any other questions about these steps? And if not, I can take a minute and go find this first vote, this first video. I guess I can do that anyway.
How does star voting work? STAR stands for Score Then Automatic Runoff. And that's exactly how it works. Just give your favorite 5 stars, give your least favorite 0, and score the others as you like. With STAR, it's easy to show your preference order and also your level of support for each candidate. It's safe to vote your conscience, and you don't have to worry about voting for the lesser of 2 evils or wasting your vote. Now let's see how the ballots are counted. Here's the first ballot. This voter gave 3 stars to Abby, 4 stars to Ben, 0 stars to Carmen, and 5 stars to DeAndre. Here's the second ballot. Note that this voter gave Abby and DeAndre the same score, which is permitted in star voting. We'll add these stars to the total, and we'll continue adding up the scores until all the ballots are counted. The 2 highest scoring candidates are finalists. The remaining candidates are out of the running. Now it's time for the second round of tabulation, the automatic runoff. Each ballot counts as 1 vote for the finalist each voter preferred. Let's see how many people preferred Carmen over DeAndre and vice versa. This voter preferred DeAndre to Carmen, so this vote goes to DeAndre. This voter also preferred DeAndre to Carmen. Note that their favorite candidate was Abby, but she didn't make it to the runoff round. Even though this voter's favorite couldn't win, their vote still makes a difference, and goes to the finalist they preferred, DeAndre. This voter gave both DeAndre and Carmen 5 stars, indicating that they like both equally. Since this voter would be equally happy with either, this ballot is counted as a vote of no preference. This voter preferred Carmen to DeAndre, so this vote goes to Carmen. And the last voter preferred DeAndre to Carmen, so this vote goes to DeAndre. Regardless of the scores given, each ballot ultimately counts as one vote. DeAndre wins. DeAndre was in the top 2 highest scoring candidates, and he had the greatest number of voters prefer him over Carmen. Star voting measured how strongly voters liked DeAndre, and also how many voters supported him. So to recap, STAR stands for Score, Then Automatic Runoff, and that's exactly how it works. Voters fill out the ballot on a 0 to 5 star scale. The 2 candidates with the most stars advance to the automatic runoff. The candidate preferred by the most voters wins. Now that you know how it works, want to try out star voting for yourself? Create your own star voting polls at star.vote. And to learn more, donate, or volunteer, go to starvoting.us.
How's the volume on that?
Quite loud enough.
Say again?
Quite loud enough.
Ah, yeah, quite loud here too. Okay, any questions after that?
If we wanted to, we could go to YouTube and watch it again, right? Would you send out that information?
Yeah, and it seems like a good idea to distribute these documents to everybody. Just send out a mailing with these summaries in it, and it'll have these links. These links aren't live, so you can copy and paste these video links into YouTube. I can see it. I can make them live again, but they don't tend to stay live through the document transfer stuff. So, but we'll try. In fact, I'll take that action item. Okay, so I have a quick summary here of, they listed some attributes in that video about the benefits of this voting method. It is currently the best method known for elections with more than 2 candidates. Way better than ranked choice voting, which actually isn't that much better than one person, one vote in terms of some of these other properties. Centrist candidates are not squeezed out by extreme candidates in this voting method. There's no need for, let's see if I can get my cursor right. There's no need for strategic voting to prevent an extreme candidate. You can always vote your conscience. And likewise, you don't need to vote for a candidate you don't want in order to increase the chances of getting a candidate that you do. And I think our current presidential election is a really great example of that. The true support of each candidate by the electorate is known by this ballot. Their favorite and the proportional support for the other candidates on their ballot. And here's the purpose of the runoff. So the runoff does 2 things. It allows every voter to influence the outcome, even if their favorite candidate lost. And it also prevents a concept called distortion. The best way I can explain that is, imagine if a small group of people gave a high number of stars to one candidate, but very few other people voted for that candidate. If there were no runoff, that candidate could win based on a coordinated effort by a sub portion of a population, like a congregation or a county or something like that. By having the runoff after that candidate would have a much lower chance of winning because they wouldn't be a preferred, or may not get any stars on other people's ballots. So they would get very few runoff votes compared to more centrist, broadly popular candidates. Okay, so there's another video here that covers the development of star voting and its benefits along the lines of what I just talked about. So if you all are up for another video, I'll bring that up. And it does sound like I can turn the volume down quite a bit. I'll try to do that as quickly as possible after I start the video. These are fairly large, so it takes a while for them to load in the player while Zoom is running.
It's fatally flawed step 3. We need star voting. The first installment of this series revealed how our seemingly innocuous voting system is an epic nightmare for the people. The second part should have restored a glimmer of hope for mankind, and now we're in the thick of it. Getting star voting passed is going to be no easy task, but knowing that we're aimed true and that this reform will lay the foundation for real change is the key. Star voting is an innovative new voting system that was born out of the debate between approval, ranked choice, and score voting. A few years back, Equal Vote hosted an election reform conference and invited the who's who of voting reform to attend. It turns out that each side of the debate held one piece of the puzzle, and until we combined forces, we were never going to have the voting system that unlocked the potential for real democracy. On one side of the debate were the people who want a system like ranked choice, where voters rank candidates in order. On the other side were the people who said that we need an approval-type ballot, where votes can simply be added up using basic addition. Both sides recognized some merit in the other's approach, but thought the other aspects were deal breakers. It was only later that night, over beers with Clay from the Center for Election Science, that inspiration struck. A score ballot can show what order a voter would have ranked the candidates in and who they approve of. Bingo. All the information is already there, and all we have to do is use it. We can count the same ballot with the same information in 2 different ways and get a result that's more accurate than either alone. The star ballot does just that. It uses the familiar 5-star rating system that we're used to from Amazon and Yelp, and then it counts those votes in a 2-step process. First, voters give each candidate a score from 0 up to 5 stars. The 2 highest scoring candidates are finalists. Your ballot already shows which finalist you would have ranked higher, and so in the second round, the finalist that was preferred by more voters wins. In star voting, the first round measures quality of support. Giving each candidate a 5-star rating lets people safely and honestly show how much or how little they support each and every candidate. If you don't prefer one over another, you can give them the same score. If you don't like someone or you just don't care, you can leave them blank. The second round measures quantity of supporters. Star voting's runoff round makes it so that every vote makes a difference, no matter who the frontrunners are. Take it from the pros. When star voting first hit the scene, activists were intrigued, but until we got the results back from Jameson Quinn's cutting-edge election simulator, the voting reform movement didn't realize what it had on its hands. Quinn, Vice Chair of the Center for Election Science and PhD candidate in statistics at Harvard University, has been working on developing a mathematical method to determine how accurate various voting systems really are. The fruit of his labor is a system called voter satisfaction efficiency. VSE measures election accuracy under a variety of situations in simulated elections. A voting system should ideally pick the candidate with the most overall support, while encouraging honest voting and discouraging tactical voting. In these simulations, star voting came in first place, with 98% accuracy when voters are honest. The simulations also showed that honesty is the best strategy for individual voters and for the electorate as a whole. Even if voters get lazy and most only give 5s or 0s, star voting is still more accurate and inclusive than ranked choice voting or approval voting. Star voting is undeniably a top-shelf election method and arguably the best out of all the ones I tested, says Quinn. It's interesting to note that ranked choice voting didn't even make it into the top 10. So here's a recap. Star voting uses a 5-star rating style ballot similar to online rating tools that people already use, like Amazon and Yelp. Star voting solves the wasted vote problem so that every vote makes a difference and voters have a real incentive to vote. Honesty is the best policy, and it's best to vote your conscience. Star voting is still accurate with any number of candidates or political parties. Star voting prevents election failures by using a fully expressive ballot, taking into account all the information from every ballot, and encouraging honest voting. Every voter has equal voting power, and the system doesn't give anyone an unfair advantage. One point that we didn't mention, but that you might be wondering about, is that there are multi-winner and proportional representation versions of star voting. If you'd like to get involved and help, we'd love to have you. You can help with field testing by using our online election calculator to host your own elections for events and organizations that you are involved with. Learn more, stay involved and up to date by checking out our website, equal.vote, and Facebook groups. Volunteer. Help get the word out by hosting or attending a party, giving a presentation, passing out information, or collecting signatures for our ballot measures in Multnomah and Lane County. Start a local Equal Vote chapter to help build momentum for a ballot measure in your area. And most importantly, please, tell people about star voting and why we need it. Democracy is not a spectator sport.
Okay. This next video I think we can skip. It's just about, unless anyone has questions about how we pick multiple winners. It's very much what I've explained already.
Brian, if we
Yeah.
gather, say, 35 or 40 people together to do the voting, how long will it take to tabulate the results?
Let's hold that question, and when we get down to a section about how we're going to count. Okay. I might have to close these videos. They're still slowing down my system. Okay, so here's our ballot plan. We're going to do this whole thing on paper ballots so that we have full ability to go back and review. Oh. Hold on. My system got unplugged. Oh, my machinations. Okay. We're going to give these ballots out in a number of different ways, either in person on Sundays, or people who can take them to other people on Sundays. We can mail them out, well, we'll email them to everybody we have an email address for. And those who can print them out can fill them out and either scan them and return them by email, return them in person or by US mail. And we're preparing to send some portion of them out by US mail in both directions. As we'll see when we look at the proposed ballot, each page of the ballot will carry the name of the voter, so that we can get back, well, we can keep track of who has voted, and do we need to contact people who we know did vote, but we don't have their ballot yet. And then we might need to heal some ballots if there are unclear choices indicated on the ballot. So when we look at the ballot, the way it's designed is that we're going to have the institution type, the denomination identifier, and the unique names in separate sections on the same ballot. And we're going to do it in that order because it's easier to rank the C's and the U's than it is. I think there are 73 currently unique names. Before we go to the ballot, I'll talk about the vote counting process. So when we've got all these ballots back, by whatever means we have them back, and we have closed the voting period, which will be officially a week, and then we'll allow a few days into the following week to receive them in the mail and to call and bug people. So when we have a stack of the final ballots, we will assign a number to each ballot for future identification. And after we've done that, all of our records after that will just be by number. We won't carry the name of the person into the spreadsheet that we use to analyze this. Current proposal is that we have 2 teams of counters. So 1 reader and 1 data enter. And those 2 teams will work independently of each other to transfer these scores from the ballots into Excel spreadsheets that have been designed and pre-set up with counting and logic. And then once those 2 spreadsheets agree, then the analysis can be done in the 2 spreadsheets. And as I said before, they'll contain only the numbers, not the voter names. And once the vote count and analysis has been completed by both teams, the 2 spreadsheets will be compared and corrected until they're both the same. I think it will take something like half a day for each team to do this data entry. That estimate is based on things I do at work that are like this. And I think we'll have at most 70 ballots. I think it'll be pretty amazing if we get 70.
Mhm.
The survey we sent out, or I should say, I'll be very happy if we get 70. The survey we sent out, I think had, the response was in the high 60s that we sent out 2 years ago at the very beginning of this process, which I thought was a very good response, given the membership that's in communication with us is around 70. So that's what I expect for that job. Okay, so now I'll go to the ballot. And I'll run through the ballot language. Okay, so here's the voter name at the top. And then these instructions were written fairly carefully for a broad audience. So I'm certainly soliciting suggestions for anything that's confusing. Please score each candidate on a scale of 0 to 5, where 5 is your most preferred candidate, as in a 5-star review system. Write the appropriate number on the line next to each candidate, following the steps described below. And I'll just scroll down and show you what.
Byron, how many 5s will a ballot have on it?
Hopefully
1?
3. Hopefully 3, 1 for each section.
1? Okay.
Yeah, and that'll be in the, that's in,
Okay,
we'll get that on step B. So here's where we recommend um, that each voter first identify the candidates that are unacceptable
mhm,
to you to narrow the field you have to work on, and write a 0 in that line by each of these or leave them blank. And again, I would encourage people to process those items in any way possible if they need to reduce their attention to them. I have a note here for sections 1 and 2, try to identify at least 3 acceptable candidates to score as described in the following steps. And that is what will, as we saw in the videos and I've talked about, that's what will make this voting system much more effective than one person, one vote. And here's where we ask you to identify your favorite candidate and write a 5 on that line. There should only be one of those. It's not that big a deal, frankly, if some people do more than one. Score the remaining candidates with numbers 1, 2, 3, or 4. As best you can, score these candidates according to the strength of your preference for each. 4 is more preferred, 1 is less preferred. Multiple candidates can be assigned the same score. A blank line is the same as a 0. To change a vote, draw an X on the old number and write the new number nearby on the same line. Feel free to work with a pencil and then ink your final scores. And then we have section 1 and section 2 clearly labeled with a place for a write-in vote. And note on the bottom to see, please see section 3 on page 2. So page 2 also carries the voter name. That's very important so we can keep ballots together. Although we can still count them if they're separated. But we just can't get back to people to help them if need be. Now here the instruction is a little bit different. Please try to identify at least 5 acceptable candidates. And these are just proposals. I'm willing to increase this number. I'm not particularly liking the idea of decreasing this number, but I'd be willing to increase it based on feedback from all of you. And then here is a table of the currently 73 names with 1 write-in. And this is just an example ballot. These are not the final list of names necessarily that will be on here. I chose to number all of the candidates to make it easier for the administrative process of keeping track of them, but those numbers have nothing to do with voting, so hopefully that's not confusing. And they'll all have a blank line beside them. This blue nonsense is just some Microsoft feature that does not show up in the printing or the PDF of this document. So that's the ballot. And I want to show you, right now we have some asterisks for names that might have conflicts with local institutions. And that's a topic that I need to discuss with the task force about whether we keep that or not. I go back and forth. And then I want to show you a practice ballot that we want to get some proportion of the congregation to help us with. Same instructions. We want to give them this ballot. The candidates are all desserts. And this collection of ballots will allow us to design the logic in our spreadsheets and go through the counting process for realsies to see how it's actually going to go, and do we need to adjust anything before we send out our ballots. So that is the whole show for tonight. Any questions or suggestions?
No,
I'm fine.
Okay.
were your questions all answered, or you still have more?
No, I just think this is gonna be, it's gonna need some explaining at the time that we wanted to get the vote. You know, send this out a week ahead of time, maybe people are gonna. I mean, there's already people that still can't vote now with, the new voting process in St. Paul and Minneapolis.
What process is that?
Well, where you can pick more than one candidate and rank them,
Is that ranked choice?
ranked choice, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
This is a little more sophisticated.
I think that's why it's important for people to come and see this.
Yeah.
And so Byron has another one going on next Thursday, and whichever one is more complete, people can watch it themselves. So there'll be that
Sure.
aspect to it.
Well, I think the challenge will be when all the votes are in and you start to look through them, how hopefully everybody who turns in a ballot has done it right and proper. And then what do you do about people's ballots who aren't handled the way the system is?
Yeah, so
We get back to them and have
Yeah.
them re-vote? Okay,
yeah, we'll definitely. That's why I'm really hoping to get everybody's name on their ballot, because
Yeah.
then we can contact them and help them
okay,
through. And we're not on a strict timeline such that we couldn't, if people were having trouble and we were getting, a lot of complaints and issues during that voting week, we can extend the voting week and
yeah, but
have
as you
more
begin
outreach.
to develop the tabulation, there are gonna be some names that are jumping out as likely, hopefully likely names. And then if other people bring their stuff in later, second, I don't know. I just think the tabulation process is a key piece of doing this properly.
No, we wouldn't start that tabulation process until we had decided that we've got all the votes we're going to get.
Okay,
All
so
the ballots.
that's what you'll do. You'll clean up all the votes before you start the.
Yeah,
process.
we have to. I mean, we can start some data entry, but we can't start any of the logic until after we have the data entry all closed.
So what's the timeline, do you think?
So the nominal timeline right now is that the week of February 4th to February 11th, that's a Sunday to a Sunday.
Yeah.
So we'd ask for all the walk back ballots to come in Sunday the
Mhm.
11th. We would allow, realistically some portion of the following week for mail ballots to be returned if they hear on service that the 11 February service and they're reminded that they forgot to vote. So then they go vote and then they put it in mail early the next week.
Right.
We get it Wednesday, Thursday, something.
You're gonna have to put a final date at some point in time,
Yeah.
to the person who, did mail it in until 3 weeks after the date. Then their
That'll
ballot will just have to be.
probably, yeah, unless at that point we have a lot of people who are having issues and we need to reach out to them, we can extend that time.
Mhm.
I would rather take more time than lose information
Right.
if it's a, you know, you know, if it's 5% or more of the
Yeah.
population, I would want to go after that information, especially for vote 1. I think vote 2 will go a lot better. It'll be simpler.
Right.
Um,
Do you think at the end of the vote 2 tabulation that a name will have come up as the number one choice?
it's virtually guaranteed by this method.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
well, I suppose, yeah, there is a chance we could have a full-blown tie, but it would be pretty remarkable.
Rare.
'Cause
Yeah.
they would have to get the same number of the same
Yeah.
score and the same number of ballots with the highest score on it. But so yeah.
Then the process is the name has to be, I would think it has to be run through some process that says this isn't the same name as 6 other Unitarian churches in the country. You know, some uniqueness to it. And is there a process where somebody has to approve the change of name
Jan.
at some higher level
Mhm.
and
I can
at the
an-
region?
I can answer that question. Whatever the final top X number of names are, I will put it through a process that I have
Okay,
to check all kinds of different places, including the UUA, Christian churches, synagogues, businesses, the state of Minnesota, whatever.
yeah,
Then what happens is once we have a name change, then we go to the state of Minnesota and they have a
Mhm.
process
Sure.
that will have
or
it.
name change, right?
Right. So part of it is doing business as DBAs,
Yeah,
which means that there could be a number of variations of our name that would still be legal going
right.
through that process. And then we have to send a letter to the IRS and trying to think. I don't know if we have to go through the Department of Revenue for Minnesota or not. I haven't really researched that one. But I have a whole checklist of things that we have to go through.
Okay. So assuming and everything goes as well as it's laid out, would a new name be available by September of 2024?
I'm going to take a wild stab and say 80 to 90% yes.
Okay,
So, so Janice and Marie, don't say it out loud, but think of a month that you think we would most likely hold the adoption vote.
Okay, I thought, got it.
Okay, Janice, you start.
May to August.
Mm-mm. No, a month.
Okay, I'll start. I said
Okay,
June because it's after our annual meeting. And I know we can't do it at the annual meeting. But by that point, I think, you know, all the tabulating is going to be done and we will have a name. And so I think June.
I agree with Marie.
why can we not do the adoption vote at the annual meeting?
I thought I heard something that there's too much going on and that we're not going to do it. Maybe that's something to ask the board.
Okay. If that's the case, then I concur that it would be June,
Okay,
because I think we could make May and possibly April, depending on how things go.
I don't think April, but I do think May would be the earliest.
Mhm.
Okay.
Because
So there's your, okay.
That to me makes the most sense, would be at the annual meeting, because that's when we'd have the most people.
Yeah, that's when I would like to do it.
I-
Because it's a twofer.
Yeah, and it may be, since it's gonna be already decided, it might work, but I just seem to think that I've heard something where they said it wouldn't work, so yeah, check it out with the board, check it out with the president. Do you know the president, Byron?
A bit, yeah.
Yeah.
And that does sound vaguely familiar. It's familiar, and I wouldn't be surprised that they don't want to add that, because I could see it taking up a big chunk of time. So that I totally understand if it wouldn't fit. So there's your over under, Rob.
Well, all I can say is I hope there's general agreement on the name before it comes to a vote. I was at Unity when they had a divided vote on whether they should do renovations. And it got down to, the number of people who were there. And there were 29 no votes. Fortunately, that was 3 votes fewer than you needed to have to not communicate the project. And it took 3 or 4 meetings to get that finalized. I don't know if there's any, does anyone know if there are any strong people who don't want to change the name?
Yeah,
I would think
there's-
that's one.
yeah, I
One
think-
cluster is people who don't want to change the name.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, at least in my experience in Unity, at that time Reverend Lawyer was still on the board. I was chairing the board. There were a group of people who really organized, and they sent out letters, and to get rid of the courtyard, which is what the big issue was. But the courtyard's not there anymore. A whole new front end on top of it. But we had to go through. They had allowed people to put cremains in the courtyard, but nobody had kept information on who the cremains belonged to. And the only person who had seemed to take the authority to do that had lost her memory. So
Oh,
I mean, you don't want to get through and get a thing where half the people want to walk away from the church because it's no longer religious.
I know that there are some, say, longer time members who really don't want it changed.
Yeah.
I don't know that they're in the majority anymore. I mean, I know these people, they're friends, and I don't know. I think we have moved along. There've been a lot of things going on in
Yeah.
the last 20 years. And
Well,
those
there
are
certainly is a list of potential names. And
yes.
that says something.
I'll tell you the one to vote for, Rob.
Okay. Just roll it up in a little note and stick it in the meal
Okay.
you bring to the next 60+ group, Marie.
Okay. Hey, are you gonna go there on Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
This Thursday,
Yeah, it's this Thursday.
the 18th. Yes, it
Okay.
is.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Okay, hey, Janice, you should come too. And Byron, no, you can't come yet, Byron.
I'm busy.
Oh, you are? Okay. Well, good. I'll see you there, Rob. Okay.
Okay.
That's that's beside the point.
Well, I just want to say that the committee has done a really very, very comprehensive job on how this is all coming about.
Thank you.
Well, good. Thank you. And a big
And
And I
part of
don't think it's political yet. When I worked for Ramsey County, we merged with the St. Paul Health Department. And the question became, was it St. Paul Ramsey County Health Department or Ramsey St. Paul Health Department? And there were people who really got invested in it. And I did what the normal thing was. I went out, looked around at other mergers, and then they reminded everybody that it used to be the St. Paul Ramsey County Medical Center. And that was the name of the community. And so, but since I've left 10 years ago, they've dropped St. Paul off the name, which is the Ramsey County Public Health.
Well, these are all reasons why we've gone deliberately, carefully, and
Yeah, I'm impressed.
are taking pains with this vote so
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
we
I'm
maximize our
impressed.
chances of ending up with a publicly visible, reasonable process.
Yeah.
So
Well, one of the challenges is, and I put MSUS, I often get stuff from Michigan State.
Oh,
And then I
Yep.
see some places it's MSUU,
Yes,
like on Reverend Laura's email.
right.
Yeah.
That's because MSUS was taken. So
By whom?
that's one of
Michigan
the
State.
things, that's one of the things that I check more carefully
Yeah,
when we get a little bit closer to a list that's more manageable, because I'm not going to check all the permutations,
yeah, yeah.
73 names.
Well, I think we always have to be careful. One of the things I learned many, many years ago, there was a big flood in Pennsylvania that wiped out a town, Wilkes-Barre, and the governor created the Flood Action Relief Team, and they signed people to it, and it wasn't until about the second day they realized that it was fart, and they had to run around all the time, change it all. Embarrassing. So we ought to spell out the acronym of whatever choice there is.
we do.
Yes.
We do keep
Well,
an
this is
eye.
a very good meeting, Brian. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Good.
Well, I'm
right.
leaving.
Okay.
Okay.
Me too.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
We'll see ya. Bye-bye. Whoops. Bye.
Bye.